This video is sponsored by Squarespace. This video is a bit of an experiment. It might go well, it might go terribly. I'm going to try and do a trick or tricks involving razor blades. Before we get into this, do not try this yourself. You could get seriously injured, so do not try it at home. In fact, don't try it anywhere. If you were doing magic tricks with razor blades in Starbucks, you'd probably get some worrying looks. Anyway, let's get into it. So to start off with, I've purchased a bunch of razor blades from different brands online. That's because in my experience doing sleight of hand with pens or coins or matches or whatever, that different brands handle differently. So buying a bunch gives me some flexibility. I might find that more is possible with one brand than another, or not. The next step is to very carefully look over the razor blades and sort of carefully examine them so I know what they're like before I start to play around with them. Now, one condition with doing this video, in fact, the only condition in doing this video is that I have to use real, sharp razor blades. The one thing that I think makes this video hopefully interesting is that I'm using such a challenging prop. And although it is a magician's job to deceive, and that is part of the job, I think in this specific case it would be cheating and very disingenuous for me to not use razor blades that are actually sharp. That means that every razor blade in this video is going to be sharp. It's not been blunted down or, I don't know, made of rubber or something like that. They're real sharp razor blades. However, that does not mean that in the purposes of practicing that I'm not going to modify them for that. I think I'm going to wrap tape around the razor blades just for the practice, because at first I'm not just going to dive in at the deep end, start doing some coin magic with razor blades and cut my hands. I'm going to be as careful as I can. Now comes the fun part, which is basically just me sitting around in the flat for hours playing with these razor blades, trying to come up with magic with them as carefully as I can. I've spent a couple of days messing around with these, trying to figure out what's possible. So far, I haven't cut myself once, hooray! However, I have come close and had these little moments where I've dropped the razor blade, almost like it's a live grenade, just in a bit of a panic. The practicing format that I've settled into is trying something with the taped razor blade, messing around with it, trying to do some sleight of hand without touching the edges. Then once I've done that a few times and I kind of feel comfortable with it, I'll then try it with the sharp razor blade, same thing again, and hopefully not touch the edges. I tend to go back and forth between the safe razor blade and the sharp razor blade fairly regularly, pretty often, pick up one for like 30 seconds, then go to the other one, back and forth quite a lot. Initially on the first day of practicing, my hands were a little bit shaky, so drinking a cup of coffee before starting was definitely unwise. I also found that my hands were a little bit sweaty at times, which really doesn't help. Although I'm unsure if that's because I was a little bit nervous maybe, or because I just had the heating on. But the biggest problem I found with the prop itself is the corners of the razor blades. Those are the bits which I almost catch myself with. So I've been looking at different ones and trying to find one that's got rounder corners, but I can't quite decide whether or not they're pretty much all exactly the same, or if one is better than the other, or if I'm just sort of fooling myself into thinking that one's a bit better than the other. They all look very similar. Sometimes I'll do something really easily with the taped razor blade, but when I come to using the sharp razor blade, I find it really, really difficult, which is kind of how it feels often when you practice a trick and you've got it nailed, but then when you show it for the first time, it's like you've gone back a few steps. That's how it felt switching from the safe one to the sharp one. But I am making a lot of progress, and I think in a few days' time, I'm gonna have some really cool stuff created. So I'll be back in a few days to show you what I've come up with. Hello, doesn't time fly when you're using jump cuts? Well, it's been a few days now and I've been working on different routines and pieces of sleight of hand involving razor blades, and I am now ready to show you what I've come up with. So presenting now, sleight of hand with razor blades.
Don't let it go. Chasing a dream. What you do? Ooh. Don't let it go. Chasing a dream. What you do? Ooh, ooh. Don't let it go. Chasing a dream. What you do? Ooh. Don't go. Chasing a dream. What you do? Ooh, ooh.
I really enjoyed the challenge of making this video. I always like working with a brand new prop that I've never used before, so if there are any objects that you would like me to do sleight of hand with, let me know in the comments. Maybe I'll make another video like this, and if you want to see a sleight of hand with razor blades part 2, let me know, and maybe I could work on some more stuff with them. I need to do a massive thank you to Squarespace for sponsoring this video. I am a Squarespace fanboy. I've used them for years on my own website, and I recently made a website for the Westminster SPA on Squarespace as well. When you use Squarespace, you get your domain, your hosting, everything all in one place. I recently set up a store on my Squarespace site to sell tickets to my live show, which worked really well. They just keep the whole process of building a website really simple, and I highly, highly recommend them. Go to squarespace.com/StephenBridges to get 10% off your first website. Thank you!
Chasing a dream. What you